Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Counselor Affinity call, gearing up for the class of 2022. I am your host, Laverne Hanfield, Programs Coordinator with the Florida College Access Network, and I am thrilled to welcome our guest speaker today for our last Affinity call of the year, Bill DeBon from the National College Attainment Network, also known as NCAN. Bill is NCAN's Director of Data and Evaluation. In that role, he researches and writes about college access and success programming that demonstrates significant results for students' college enrollment and graduation rates, while additionally providing technical assistance to other initiatives. Mr. DeBon leads NCAN's benchmarking project, an ongoing collaborative research effort with NCAN members that examines the enrollment and completion outcomes of students served by college access and success programs. Other activities include the creation, development, and maintenance of NCAN's data and evaluation toolkit, and the Form Your Future Fafsa Tracker, which you have probably heard a lot about through many of FCAN's work, and the provision of technical assistance to school districts in projects like the To and Through Advising Challenge and the Rural Student Success Initiative. Welcome to today's Affinity call, and thank you for joining us, Bill.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Before we dive into today's presentation, a few housekeeping items. We'd like you all to share some strategies and resources on how you plan your college and career readiness activities and resources for your school year. Please submit any questions you have about today's presentation in the box, which you should see on the right side of your screen if you're viewing from a desktop computer. We will allot time at the end of today's call for our guest presenter to answer questions, but you can submit them at any time, and I encourage you to do so. Finally, this Counselor Affinity call is being recorded. All materials that we discussed today and the recording will be available within a week of today's call, including, as I said before, the recording and the slides, which will be sent out via email blast from me. There are no handouts today in the handouts section, as we would like to direct you to the specific websites that we will be discussing where the resources are today, specifically NCAN's website to review the 15-month calendar, which the link will be provided further along in today's presentation. Very briefly, I'd like to go over what these affinity calls are if you are unfamiliar. This is a time specifically for counselors and college access professionals to come together to share with each other. You may only get to hear, especially this past year, what other schools are doing through newsletters, email blasts, and social media. Although FCAN has seen many schools and districts reaching out across the state to collaborate on events to reach more students, and hearing someone else talk about their program could spark an idea in you to add a new feature to your existing program, implement something completely new, or discover a new resource, which hopefully you are doing today. The intention of these calls is threefold. The first is to create a space for you to share your best practices for programs around FCAN's College Ready Florida initiatives in conjunction with the email blasts that are sent out, to highlight the great work you are doing in preparing students for life after high school and a rewarding career, and to provide resources from local, state, and, as we are doing today, national partners. We hope in the future to have some school counselors, college access professionals, and mentors like yourselves as featured speakers on calls, as well as local college access networks on how they can provide support for you if one is in your region or county. If there are topics you'd like FCAN to highlight in future Affinity calls, please make sure to fill out the survey at the end of today's Affinity call to let us know. I will not take up too much time today in my introduction. I will give a brief, very brief introduction and hand it over to our presenter. So today we are here to discuss planning out your school year with college and career readiness activities for students to engage in. The benefit of doing this before the school year begins is that you can have an outline of activities you want to highlight with students to plan for their life after high school. This also gives you a great amount of time to line up speakers, acquire necessary resources, and begin creating any partnerships needed to make these activities come alive. On the screen right now, is just an overview of the FCAN's College Ready Florida activities and what months these initiatives usually fall under. So Planet Florida can be implemented at any time throughout the school year. We typically see schools hosting events for Apply Yourself Florida in September and October, sometimes through November. And this past year, we have seen some schools hosting those in the spring as well. The Florida Fafsa Challenge, FCAN begins the Florida Fafsa Challenge on October 1st when the FAFSA becomes available, and it ends on the last Friday in March to encourage students to complete the FAFSA early, as we know that some financial aid is on a first come, first served basis. And Florida College Decision Day, we do see schools typically hosting those in March through May or June. And this past year, if you were not on our last counselor affinity call with Stephanie Owens from Reach Higher, they did announce that they will be hosting, National College Signing Day will be hosting their celebration on April 30th and also May 1st. So gear up for that if you need stickers or resources such as the ones in the photo on this slide. Reach out to me and let me know. A great tool to refer to when planning out your activities is the National Educational and Health Awareness Calendar, published by the American School Counselor Association. That is the term that you can Google and it will be probably the first thing that comes up. You can also include important dates and deadlines from local, regional, state, and national organizations in your calendar outline, such as making sure to pencil in registering for the College Ready Florida initiatives each year and reporting any data and successes to FCAN. Also, planning out your activities is a key component of Planet Florida. While we are here to discuss NCAN's K-12 15-month college and career readiness calendar and their other K-12 resources, the Planet Florida initiative has explored and gathered resources that might help you implement and or see what having a calendar in place might look like. At the bottom of the Planet Florida webpage, which you can see right down here, you will see a few links to 3 examples of program sequences from school districts in Florida that have implemented college and career preparation programs. Here is the link to the Planet Florida webpage. And as I said, I wasn't going to take up much of your time, but before I hand things over to Bill, I'd like to ask the audience a quick poll question. We would like to know how in need you are of, there we go, of a tool, resource, or template to help you plan out your college and career readiness activities for the school year. Do you already have a tool? Do you have a tool but you can use one with more resources, or are you in desperate need to help you plan out the year? I believe this is a question where you can select multiple responses. So you can have a tool, but you could also still be in need of desperate help, whichever floats your boat. So we do see some responses coming in. I'll give you all about 5, 4, 3, 2. Don't see any more responses coming. So, oh, just a few. Okay. Gonna share those results. We do see a few of you, about equally 14%, who already have a tool, but you are also in desperate need of a tool, and 86% of you that do have a tool, but you can use one with more resources. And I am very happy that we have Bill today to talk about a tool that has some resources for you. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to you, Bill.
Okay, let me wrangle my screens here and make sure that I've got everything set up here. I just had this, of course. Let's go. All right. Am I looking okay here? Wonderful. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Laverne, for the introduction. And I am so pleased to be here today. My name is Bill DeBon. I am NCAN's Director of Data and Evaluation. And functionally, what that means is that anything with numbers tends to cross my desk. But the secret got out that I am not just a numbers guy at NCAN. And so now I get to work on all kinds of other kinds of cool resources that I would love to talk with you about today. Here is my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out anytime. I love to field kind of all kinds of questions, small things, big things, whatever. Don't be a stranger. I would not put my contact information here if I didn't really mean it. Here are my goals for today. I don't intend to speak at you for too long, but I do have a few goals that I hope we can cover. First, I want to give you just a thumbnail sketch about NCAN's work. If you're not familiar with us, I'd love to obviously share some new resources for you to start, improve, or expand practice related to college career readiness. I'd love to focus on our K12 calendar and also on tracking FAFSA completion data, which is a topic near and dear to my heart. And then, like Laverne said, we're going to leave plenty of time here at the end to have some dialogue about, what are some pain points that you have that we can either hopefully resolve today or get resolved on a future webinar. And would also love to hear whatever else is on your mind, but specifically related to college and career readiness topics. I used to leave this as ask whatever is on your mind. I left it there. I got way too broad responses back, so we had to narrow the focus there a little bit. If you are not familiar with NCAN, we are a national membership organization based in Washington, D.C. We have about 500 members across the country, and they come in all shapes and sizes. They are community-based organizations, nonprofits, after-school programs. They are school districts. They are Gear Up programs, state agencies, colleges and universities, funders. So this whole amalgam of partners looks very different, but we are united in trying to close access and attainment gaps for students. We have a really strong belief in the ability of post-secondary access and attainment to drive social and economic mobility across the country. We largely do our work through three areas. The first is through building network capacity, and FCAN is one of our tremendous members, someone that we actually look to a lot as a leader in the field. And we try to build our network capacity among our members by informing members about best practice, kind of hearing about their pain points and developing resources to address them. We have a national conference that we're very excited to host again this year. This year it will be virtual again. And we put on all kinds of webinars. We have a weekly newsletter, all those kinds of things to build our network up. We also advocate for policy solutions at the federal and state levels to reduce obstacles for students to access and attain post-secondary education. And we also support systems change through all kinds of often grant-funded projects, a number of which right now are working directly in districts and schools, and one of which is working specifically with some school districts in Florida, which I'm very excited about. This chart is probably, unfortunately, not new to all of you. We do this work because talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And we can see there are significant college enrollment rate gaps among students from different kinds of high schools. So what do we do about those gaps? Well, we have been really thinking a lot about how high schools can change students' post-secondary pathways. Kind of historically, NCAN's bread and butter has been community-based organizations, and a significant, very large chunk of our membership still are community-based partners, and probably always will be. But we've been thinking about how can we scale college and career readiness supports through K12 districts and schools in a way that helps to meet the significant need for college access and success services that students have across the country. Our CBO partners do tremendous work every day, but the volume of students that schools and districts have access to, and kind of the relationship that schools have with their students, we really wanted to put more resources out into the field to facilitate kind of K12's implementation, expansion, improvement of college and career readiness supports. So to that end, we put together our K12 Resources Page. I don't intend to read all of this to you. This deck is going to get sent out to you. You can see there's a lot of hyperlinks here. So, you know, I hope that you'll spend some time exploring each of these, but I just want to give a quick overview. So we're kind of curating this K12 Resources Page. This used to be really, really large, like huge list of links. And we realized that we needed to pare it down. You know, counselors especially have so many demands on their time that we needed to pare down what we were suggesting and try to recommend the very best resources and approaches that we could to, you know, kind of try to be efficient in getting our message out. So we have 4 key resources that we suggest districts and schools use to jumpstart their efforts on post-secondary transitions. The first one are these post-secondary readiness rubrics from an organization called One Goal. And they're a really, really great kind of self-assessment about what current practice looks like around college career readiness activities. They have these at the district and at the school level. And essentially, these rubrics have ideally teams from a district or school kind of identifying where they see themselves on the rubric. And this isn't meant to be kind of a gotcha accountability thing. It really is a jumping off point for conversations around, this is what I see us doing. This is what I wish we were doing. This is what we think there's buy-in to kind of improve on, to move on. And you know, we think kind of the buckets that One Goal has identified, and you can see them here, the 7 focus areas, really are tremendously important for districts and schools to be thinking about. And so rather than just go in to a, you know, a K-12 environment and say, well, let's think about college or career readiness. It's like, well, if you're thinking about like hearing crickets, that's what we would hear, right? Because that's a very expansive topic. So if we narrow it down to kind of these focus areas and think about, okay, where are we now? Where would we like to go? That's a much more productive conversation. I'm going to skip over the calendar for a second and come back to that. The other resource that we're really big on, and some of you may already be using it, is the National Student Clearinghouse's Student Tracker for High School Service. It answers the question, how do we measure our post-secondary outcomes, and where do students actually go after graduation? Lots of districts and schools are using the Student Tracker for high school, which costs about $595 per year per high school right now. But we actually find that tons of districts still aren't embracing this tool and are relying on things like senior exit surveys to hear about where students are going. We're really big fans of the Student Tracker because rather than relying on student, you know, kind of student feedback or senior exit surveys, you know, they actually track the enrollments semester by semester, track transfers, they track completions, and it gives districts and schools a really kind of in-depth look at what happens to students after graduation, which is really important to inform post-secondary advising for current students. The NSC is something that I could talk about probably for hours, which is not really the point of this experience. So if you have questions, let's talk about that at the end, or again, feel free to reach out to me. The last big resource on our list here is a white paper called New District-Wide Approaches to Student Success Beyond High School. That is a mouthful, but the big idea here is, how does it look when a school district incorporates big changes to post-secondary advising? And so there's a bunch of different strategies in here. Broward County actually is one of the school districts profiled. And each one of the districts that is in this brief kind of has a replicable approach to some extent, or at least has components that are replicable for, you know, the typical district or school. So as a way to brainstorm and put kind of big ideas out into the field, NCAN wrote this brief. So we backtrack to the college career readiness calendar. So obviously this goes to the poll question that we had earlier about having a resource to plan and keep all of these things straight. And the brainchild here is that we are asking counselors especially to do so many things related to college career readiness. Totally cognizant of that. There are not enough hours in the day. There are always demands on counselors' time. And to the extent that we're talking about, well, it would be great if you could emphasize this practice, or that you could focus on this college going milestone. It's really a bridge too far to kind of make those asks and not provide support or some guidance around how to do those things. So we put together this 15-month college career readiness calendar. 15 months because we have the summer beforehand and also the summer afterward. And I'm actually going to go to the website here. I should have had this pulled up. Give me 1 second. Oh, screen sharing is paused. No, I don't want that. Oh. Ooh. Sorry. First timer here. Oh, that's why. Just give me the whole screen. Sorry, Laverne. Laverne, you probably got your head in your hands right now, being like, we brought a rookie on here to do this.
You're completely fine.
Sorry.
It also may be the monitor that you're sharing your stuff on. So we may have to switch or minimize. We see your presenter slides now.
Oh, that's not it. That's not the one. All right. Let's try this. Okay, good. All right, so we'll switch to here.
There we go.
Yes, okay. All right, sorry. I would promise you all that this will be the only technical kind of snafu that we have here, but it probably won't be. We've got this sortable calendar, right? And so we've got some basic drop downs here. What month are we in? The different categories here, right? So are we talking about management and budget, data, setting up partnerships, doing early awareness activities? Post-secondary advising, as you might imagine, is a pretty expansive category. Financial aid and Fafsa, both really important. And so what we've done is set up what the categories are, describe what the planning item or the action item is. So things that are in italics in this calendar are these are places where you should be planning, laying some planning in. So for example, like summer melt activities, the activity piece of it, you're really doing, let's say June through August. But we all know that summer melt starts much earlier, right? So we really need to be planning to do summer melt activities starting in like February and March, so we're all on the same page for a May implementation and a June, July, August activity period. The other thing that we've done here is to lay out what we see as the best resources for each one of these categories. So, if they're for financial aid, for example, and Fafsa, we lay out like NCAN's Fafsa resource library. The idea here is we don't want school counselors or any K12 personnel really to have to see, okay, well, here's the activity for this month, but like, what do I do about it, right? We're trying to fill in all the different pieces of that and make this calendar really one-stop shopping. And so our hope, right, is that by taking advantage of the calendar, we can help keep all the different practices in the college career readiness pipeline straight, and also because we identify when the planning has to happen, make sure that in any given month there aren't surprises, right? So that if you're thinking about analyzing National Student Clearinghouse data, let's say in December, well, in July and August, we have an item here to make sure you've updated your National Student Clearinghouse graduates file, right? So that everything kind of runs like clockwork over the course of the year. So we've had this out since last fall or so. We've gotten some pretty good feedback on it. I would love and really appreciate any kind of feedback you have about, the aesthetic of it, functionality. We're always trying to update it, so to add new resources that come along and make sure that that we're staying current, we're staying up to date with best practices, and we just don't want this to get stale, right? Because the field is always constantly evolving, and so consequently the calendar has to keep up with that piece as well. Let me switch back here. Oh, I can actually, let's see. Ooh. Okay. So let me just wrap up the K12 resources part here. We also have dedicated resource pages for 4 key topics. So these are the areas that we think are kind of the most transformative, there's most bang for the buck, the most juice for the squeeze, whatever kind of turn of phrase you want, that we would love to see more K12 districts and schools incorporating. And so the topics here are transforming post-secondary advising, largely through conversations about fit and match with students, increasing FAFSA completion, and kind of thereby increasing access to financial aid, reducing summer melt and ensuring matriculation, and then doing all 3 of these practices using data to educate students and inform services, so that when new data comes in, it kind of informs what you've already been doing, and you can get into this kind of continuous improvement cycle. So I want to show you a demo of NCAN's Form Your Future Fafsa Tracker. I hope that some of you at least have heard of this before. But our Fafsa Tracker answers the question, well, what does FAFSA completion look like in the current cycle? And so every week starting October 1st, NCAN pulls down school level data from federal student aid and incorporates it into this interactive dashboard. We're tracking FAFSA completion at the national, state, city, district, and school levels. It is sortable, it's kind of interactive, and we're also looking at FAFSA completion by high school seniors, like by percentage of senior class, and also by percent change over the course of the cycle. Let me click here and show you a little bit of the Fafsa tracker. We currently have data available through April 9th. And so you can see that about 46.5% of the senior class nationally has completed a Fafsa. That's about 1.75 million Fafsas, which is down 6.7% compared to last year. So you can see these 2 big metrics here that I talked about. The estimated percent of seniors completing a Fafsa, then the year-over-year percent change. So you can see that year over year, we started out in a big hole, right? We were down nearly 17% at the end of November, and slowly been climbing up over the course of the cycle. We also break these data out by high school characteristics, so by Title I eligibility, by the concentration of students of color, and then by the geographic locale, so city, suburb, town, and rural. And then we get down here to rankings by state, right? So these are, these are how the states are faring, by these 2 different metrics. So right now we've got Florida. We had Florida until my computer fell apart here. So we got Florida down here in percent change, or by percent of seniors completing. About 40% of the class of 2021 in Florida has completed thus far, and pretty much every state is down year over year. Florida is ranked 12th right now, down about 4.5%. So it's still room to move that needle. About 80% nationally of FAFSAs. About 80% of the number of FAFSAs completed by June 30th last year have been completed so far. So there's still about a 1/5 of the expected number of FAFSAs to go. So there's still plenty of room. We do also have kind of a state profile here for Florida. So we click the state profile, and we'll jump here to Florida. It gives you kind of the same data, but at the state level. So we can see that year over year, there's about 4,000 fewer FAFSA completions compared to last academic year. And so we can see on these, oh, well, I've got a little glitch here on the year over year percent change. I will have to fix that. We can see the Florida versus the nation here in terms of percent of seniors completing. is a little bit behind. We can see here by Title I eligibility, concentration of students of color, and by geographic locale. So we can see that we have some equity concerns here. High schools where more students with low-income backgrounds are being served have a much steeper FAFSA completion deficit. And then here's where you can use these drop downs to filter by city, district, and then school. And then the last page here on our Fafsa Tracker is looking at data by cycle. And we don't need to look at Ohio today. We can look at Florida. Great. So this shows the last 4 FAFSA completion cycles. This is percent change year over year. This light blue line is last year, and the orange line is the current year. And so you can see a little bit of convergence here, both though much further behind 2019-20 and 2018-19, which were normal pre-pandemic years. And then we have the percent of seniors completing, in the 3 previous classes, all pretty well aligned. But right now, the class of 2021 is about 2.5 percentage points behind those previous classes. So that's NCAN's Form Your Future Fafsa Tracker. You can find it at formyourfuture.org. But I'm actually also really excited to show you again. I imagine all of you have seen this, but FCAN maintains a really wonderful Florida FAFSA Challenge dashboard. In a lot of ways, this was the inspiration for NCAN's dashboard. I remain kind of eternally grateful to FCAN for getting the ball rolling on visualizing FAFSA completion data this way. And you can just go much more in depth on Florida FAFSA completion among 12th graders here on this dashboard. Let's see what is going on here. So you can filter by, by school level, school size, charter status, school type, and the different tabs here will let you dive deeper into a school's detail. Let's take a look at that real quick. The thing I really love about the Florida dashboard here is it gives the estimate of the number of Pell Grant distributions that have been received, which is phenomenal. It shows some data. This is statewide, so some data around FAFSA completion year over year, and then shows some weekly progress, which is great. And then you've got a series of maps here that show kind of the school districts year over year, and then the absolute progress in FAFSA completion on this tab. It's a really, really well done dashboard. I will say I take a look at a lot of these dashboards, as you might imagine, over the course of my work here. And FCAN's is absolutely one of the best. It is a tremendous resource to have this available, at the state level, and to be able to dive down to the district and school level is great. Many states don't have anything like this, and some of the ones that do, they're much more clunky. They're not as detailed. So I am here to kind of tout this a little bit and let you know this really is A+ work here from FCAN. So I think that is all I have. I would love to kind of go back during the Q&A period and hear about anything I went too fast on, and would just love to hear your questions, comments, pain points, and strategies to share. So Laverne, I think I'm going to pass it back to you as the presenter, and looking forward to some robust Q&A.
Thank you so very much, Bill. That was very informative. Thank you so much for all the FCAN dashboard plugs. We love the Form Your Future FAFSA Tracker as well. There's a feature, I don't know how to find it off the top of my head, that actually compares the district's FAFSA completions to the state's FAFSA completion to know how much ahead or behind they are, which I discovered this past fall, and I thought it was phenomenal just to kind of see where the districts fall as compared to the state in their FAFSA completions. I do have a very quick, before we go to questions, another poll question for everyone. After hearing about the NCAN calendar today, just a, super quick, poll question, how likely are you to actually use the NCAN calendar or a similar tool to helping you implement and map out your college and career readiness activities for the year? So are you highly likely to use the NCAN readiness calendar, somewhat likely, not likely, or you already have a tool? We'd love to hear. And again, this is also an opportunity. Also, I'm going to lay out the opportunity because we're going to start on questions next. If you have a question, please submit them in the questions box. It could be for Bill to go back and discuss something more in depth of what he talked about. A specific question about implementing the activities that he discussed are in the calendar. Any of the NCAN K12 resources that he went through today, the Form Your Future Tracker, as well, if you'd like. See those questions, those poll results coming in. I'll give you guys 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you. Oh, I got your answer, the last person. So it's kind of fit. I'm kind of split. 77-23. You all are very highly likely to use the NCAN College and Career Readiness calendar, and we're very happy that you are. We have a slide at the end. Although Bill went to the website, we do have a slide at the end to show you where exactly to find the college and career readiness calendar, as well as NCAN's other resources. Thank you all so much for participating in the poll. And we are going to move on to questions. Again, if you have any, put them in the questions box. If you're on a desktop computer, that is on the right of your screen. So my first question is just kind of like a general question of like, is the calendar specifically something that counselors have to follow to the T?
No, absolutely not. So let me zoom out, I guess, a little bit and think about kind of philosophically how NCAN thinks about providing K12 resources. We know that most districts and schools are already engaged in some kind of college career readiness activities, right? Certainly, I suspect that most of the counselors on the line today, right, are, right? If they're connected with FCAN, it would be very hard to be missing all the great messaging that you're putting out about these activities. So our hope is that the resources we put out drive ideas about how to improve on the margin, right? So taking a look at what you're doing now and saying to yourself, okay, like this is an area that I have the capacity to expand into, right? Or saying like, well, this is something that I'm doing now, but how could I get a little bit better at it? So absolutely not a place where we want to be prescriptive and say, do every one of these things, do it in the order that it says. Like that would, first of all, that would be arrogant on our part, but it's also unrealistic, right? Instead, what we're trying to do is kind of meet you where you are and say, this is what our kind of best guesses of where things fit, and these are the best resources that we have found to implement these topics. And our hope is that it either sparks a conversation or that it it drives some changes to practice that could benefit students.
That's a great point. Thank you. So what would you say or suggest would be the first step for schools and counselors to go through the calendar and start implementing some of the activities?
Well, I mean, I think a good first step is to take stock of what you're doing now, right? To take a look at, maybe even, as a team activity, kind of sketch out, on a monthly basis, what do you think your current activities and highlights and focuses are? And then kind of compare and contrast to what we've laid out, right? I mean, do you have all the same things that we have? Do you have them in the same months, right? Like how do those things differ? I think implementing the calendar is an exercise in what is realistic, right? And we have to be realistic about how much time we have, how much capacity, how much buy-in we have from leadership, from other partners to implement these things, right? And so first taking stock of what am I currently doing, then looking at what NCAN is suggesting should be done, and then seeing, okay, And the gap between those, what are the places where we could realistically get some movement in terms of practice?
And I know, just based on feedback that I hear from school counselors, that it's really, especially this year, it's really a matter of what can I grab and go with. Are these like grab and go things, or are like fill in the blank of I can do this, I can do that, or are they, how would you describe them as in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's we have tried wherever possible to identify like really tactical resources, right? So if we're talking about parent outreach, for example, like we want to send you like actual like one pagers, flyers, like, you know, resources that you can grab and go, that you can adapt and then put out to your audiences, right? Wherever we can, we are trying to pull in high quality artifacts of practice and incorporate them into the calendar here. Now, there are also places where, you know, summer melt is a topic that bears some resources at a 10,000 foot level to look at. Well, there's like a lot of different ways to approach summer melt, right? Like, are you going to do text messaging? Are you going to do summer counselors? Are you going to do drop-in centers? Are you going to have transition checklists? Like, those kinds of things are, that is a matter of like kind of philosophical and tactical approach for a team to take on. And so in that case, we've tried to provide some resources about, okay, here are examples of these different styles of implementation. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And also a quick plug to the audience today. Bill was also featured last week on FCAN's webinar on summer melt. So you can go to the FCAN website on the blog and check out the key takeaways for that webinar, as well as access the recording and the slides from last week.
Can I just say as a plug for that webinar? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I say as a plug for that webinar? I spent a lot of time thinking about summer melt, and I walked away from that webinar like really impressed by the panelists. Like, I learned a whole bunch. Like, even though like I've worked with all three of the panelists, like hearing about their work on that panel, like direct from them, was really, really wonderful and gave me tons of ideas. So it really is worth your time to look at the key takeaways or look at the recording.
Speaking on sort of that same note, again, for those in the audience who you more than likely received the invitation to register for today's Counselor Friendly Call in the e-blast, you would notice that at the end of the e-blast, there's a monthly priorities list. That list and the resources are actually pulled directly from the NCAN K12 College and Career Readiness calendar. So we kind of want to keep you on the forefront of things that you should be doing throughout that month, or, well, suggestions for things that you should be doing throughout the month, and some easily available and implemented strategies that you can use from the College and Career Readiness calendar. Every month I go through the calendar, look at the resources, look at the actions, look at the functions, look at the planning and activities, and go through the resources and see if this is something that, you know, you can be doing, from the super small schools and districts to the large ones, and also the ones that are partnering together. I did see Ralph and Carol and Anthony on the call. Shout out to you all. Hello. But on the same topic of, you know, working with those panelists from last week, and you're still being amazed at the things that they're doing, can you talk a little bit about the Fafsa spotlights that NCAN did this past fall-ish throughout this year?
Like in terms of like district practice?
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the last academic year, let me be like as understated as humanly possible, right? The past year has been difficult, right? Has been challenging, and the efforts that districts and schools and counselors have been putting out have been Herculean, like, and just incredible, frankly. I mean, full stop. So NCAN has been getting asked a lot, as you might imagine. You know, well, what are some innovative practices that districts and schools and practitioners are using to still reach out to students? So we've been trying to highlight those at the NCAN blog. We've done some webinars, one with Broward County, and we've done some blog posts, and we've put together some kind of like practice guides on the NCAN blog. I'm going to try to see if I can find them. I'll link them here for you. That's one piece. You know, the other part in terms of like FAFSA spotlights and kind of FAFSA completion practices, that we in the past have done some FAFSA completion challenges across the country, and those yielded some really interesting kind of district-wide approaches to FAFSA completion. We've actually got those curated in the FAFSA resource library that I showed you earlier, and let me drop that link into the chat here, because there's also a FAFSA planning calendar there. There's a part about kind of how to engage partners in this work. So that is kind of the culmination of a number of these spotlights that we've done. I actually can't put it to everyone, so I am going to put it in the chat here, and maybe you can just kind of rebroadcast it. Okay.
Yes, that is perfect. And since I don't believe that I see any more questions, I am just going to move right on along and thank everyone for joining us today. You can find the resources that Bill discussed today on NCAN's website, which we put a link to in the chat, and also a link to the FAFSA resource library that Bill just discussed about, where you can find strategies, best practices and strategies for FAFSA completion. The Florida FAFSA challenge ended in March. However, the FCAN dashboard is still being updated, so you can still continue to track your school and district's FAFSA completion, and still encourage students to complete the FAFSA, and apply to college. Although Florida College Decision Day is coming up, it's still an opportunity for them to apply to colleges and continue to plan out what their life will be after high school. You can also still find many resources available on FCAN's website. Toolkits, guides for media, volunteer, business outreach, site coordinator, toolkits, training videos. Yes. Also, lastly, I do want to make sure that I include this. The NCAN resources, the blog posts, the calendars, the FAFSA resource library, those are all, sorry, one small moment. Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right now it's the PowerPoint.
Yes. The NCAN K12 College and Career Readiness calendar. Okay,
yep.
Cool. Yes, all of the resources that Bill discussed today are free on the NCAN K12 Resources page. They do have a few webinars which are free if you are an NCAN member, and need to pay for if you are not an NCAN member. But the college and career readiness calendar is free to use, to peruse, to go through, and everything. And this is the website that you can go to. It is also in the chat on your right, if you're viewing on a desktop computer. Many thanks to Bill for presenting today, and thank you all so very much for joining us and participating. We hope that you have a great rest of the school year, and that you gear up for planning for next school year for the class of 2022, to help them plan out and achieve an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you so much.